Right, sorry about that. Yes, so if you had half an hour and you knew that in half an hour you were going to die, what would you say? That is really my point, truthfully. And that is what I am trying to put into words. I know full well I have not given in, and yet I feel almost powerless to do anything positive. Even as a Jehovah's Witness, I'm struggling. Lots of them are writing letters, and I can't express myself. I seem to be in a rut. Seem to be one of those where the anxieties and pressures of life have choked my Christianity, and yet on another level, the weird thing is, on another level, I don't feel like that. I just seem powerless to speak, powerless to do something positive. I suppose this is what my point is if you did have that half an hour left, one of my favourite illustrations in the Bible is one where Jesus talks about someone who's died and how this beggar that he knew was with the bosom position with God, and he had been rich all his life, and he'd seen the beggar and not really helped him much in life, and now he died. And it's not really to try to talk about, it's trying to warn people. That's what the illustration actually meant. Jesus was saying that this person who had been one of God's people had been rich all his life, and he'd had everything that life could give him, and yet he hadn't been a good person. Even though he was one of God's people, an Israelite, he wasn't an Israelite. He hadn't done the things, he hadn't followed the commandments, hadn't been a good person. That literally would have meant, like Lazarus, who hadn't had the good things and who was getting these things now. The illustration wasn't talking, it was talking on a spiritual level, truthfully. This person who'd had everything in life had never sought the good things, had always only sought material things. Whereas Lazarus was, because of the inequality of his life, was now getting the good portion. But what that's really talking about is, if you focus upon now materialism and things of material nature, and that is your focus, then to be honest, you will sow what you reap, and the scriptures are quite clear about that. That is exactly what you'll get out of life. And at the end of it all, after walking that broad path with no confines, you will die. And I'm not talking about the death that you die this time, I'm talking about the future death. Jesus used another illustration of a narrow and cramped path and a broad and spacious path. And these two illustrations, or one illustration if you look at it from the right perspective, warned people that have no qualms, no confines to their particular path that they have chosen to walk. They walk this path with no obligation to anybody or anything, and they choose to walk that path wherever they want and do whatever they want to whomsoever they want. Does this now begin to sound familiar? The consequence of walking that path to its completion all the way through your life, which is the path that most people choose to walk, is you will die. The second death, not the first death where you die and you die, but the one where you get a chance, where you will stand before God, because the scripture clearly says that. Whether you believe it or not doesn't really make a difference. If you don't believe in trees don't disappear. If you don't believe in God, he won't disappear. He still exists, whether you choose to believe in him or not. So if he does exist, I'm talking now as an unbeliever, and you stand before him, as he says, the being who never lies, that every knee will bend and every tongue confess. So everybody, whether you believe in God or either you don't, will stand before God at the end of time as we know it, as the end of this present system and the end of Jesus' kingdom, the 1,000-year reign of the kingdom. At that point, when all the dead will stand before God, at that point everybody will see that God exists. That doesn't help you now, and that's what the illustration about the rich man was truly on about, and what the illustration about the broad path is actually really meaning. Most people walk the broad path, even people who consider themselves good. I myself wonder, all of my life I have tried to live by God's rules, and I still will to the day or minute or hour that I die. But have I achieved what God would expect of me? Have I achieved what Jesus would expect of me? That's the question I am unsure of at this moment in time. Truly. And that is a worry to me, because as the demons, I do fear God. I fear failing him as well, and I truly want to absolutely and utterly succeed. So I'm trying to find the right way to express myself, and in some way I'm using Farming Simulator, this particular map, as my muse, as my way of expressing myself through this, to speak to primarily myself, but not just that, to express myself to others, to say, really, honestly, are you so sure that everything you see with your eyes and touch with your fingers, that is it, that there is nothing beyond that there's nothing below DNA, nothing underneath these things, the concepts that people have no answer for? We can't even picture DNA properly. We think as a race we have all of the answers, but we're only skirting the edge of what we call science. God is the greatest scientist of all. He is the one who's put all of these systems of things in motion. He is the one beyond time, that time cannot touch, because he created all elements and is above and beyond all elements, so they cannot control him. We are totally under the control of all of these systems, under beings like demons and angels that are far more powerful than we ever know how to be. And yet the demons wish this system to advertise to everybody that there is no God. They want that. They are controlling that and making it appear. And yet at the same time, humankind is intrinsically so totally interested in these beings, so absorbed in them, that nearly all of our literature and everything we've got is all about these beings. Absolutely amazing that this is what is carrying on, and it is. So yes, my mind is a blur with all these different sort of possibilities, and what would I say to you, the human race, if I had my 30 minutes? Now, I don't consider myself a great orator. I'm not a great emoter like Jesus. Oh my life, how much rain is there on this map? I am not a great emoter, and even if I was, Satan has got this system so well sewn up, so intrinsically, to hide the needle in the haystack, that you'll never hear this message. Not unless God chose us to elevate it so that people could. So I feel so confined by this system, and by the weaknesses of this system, and by the fact that I don't know how to express myself, how to warn people of the precarious place of the broad path, and it's where that leads to. I wish to warn people of that, but I know that people don't care. People are totally oblivious to the precipice that they stand on, and where it's going to lead. And even if I said this message just as in the illustration where, let me just stick that, the where this beggar was literally, he basically said to Lazarus, his message to him was, please go back and tell my brothers who are still alive of the precarious position that they're in. And he said, they have the prophets. And in exactly the same way, mankind has God's letter to mankind, which is the Bible. That is the truth. God has warned us. Every single prophecy that foretells COVID and things like COVID and the what will happen next, the Great Tribulation, of how terrible a time that would be, and how, whether you like it or not, that Jesus Christ will reign. That God has already foretold that this is going to happen. Oh, it's ready to harvest. Let's get this rain gone. No matter whether you want it or you don't, that is the truth. That is what's going to happen. Let me just set this going. As I say, this is my muse, and I am there we go. Lowers. Now where did I stick them all? I believe they're all over there, and I want the other fence, which is also over there. Yeah, so it is in that particular illustration where basically Jesus was saying that we've already had our warning, that God has had the Bible written truthfully so that we know. We've got prophecies, exact prophecies that foretold, countless prophecies, thousands of prophecies, hundreds of prophecies at the very least, that foretell minutiae of things that would happen in this system, some things that have happened, some things that will happen, especially in our time. We are living in a time where the Bible is full of prophecies about what is going to happen. That foretell, well, yeah, even COVID to a degree, to be honest. All of this thing, God promised that in our time there would be the meeting of punishment, that there would never be a generation as absolutely wicked as the one that we are in now, that would care so little for anything else. And God has always been a God of justice. If you don't follow the principles, this generation is more nasty than any other generation. We are more nasty to one another. We produce food that is horrible and obnoxious and poisonous. We do so. I've forgotten. This one needs altering. We are nastier to one another. Even our legal systems and the way that we treat one another is more horrible. We are cruel to one another. Let me set this going. This is the bad part of the muse. It has demands. Right. Need to go and alter Actually, thinking about this, I do need this because it's the pure Fendt GT's proper mowers. It's not the front ones, so I can't stick it on my other tractor even if I wanted. So yeah, right, let's try and gather my thoughts, because this is annoying because it's taken me away from what I want to do. Right, now we can put the mower on. So, it's actually quite good we've got another tractor, because we can at least windrow straight away and then hopefully bale a rat before... God, I hope we don't get any more rain. This map seems to be terribly bad rain-wise. Seems to be coming every few minutes. Right, let's try and gather my thoughts again. The more important things. Yes, the times we're living in, truthfully. I think I've got that the wrong way around. Do this properly. I'm trying too hard to... I need to relax and just go with it a little bit more, and that's what I'm trying to say. Yes, all of the many, many prophecies that really are the greatest proof that God exists, truly. Oh. Let's switch the lines on a minute. Then let's try and gain halfway. That's the end point. This is a massive field. Right, I'm going to gauge there, and we're going to set him going. Switch those lines off. Go. Nearest. Go. Right, okay, let's crack on then. So, yes, warnings. COVID. The end of times, that the increasing of lawlessness, that the people in the time of the end would not care about one another. All of these things, every single one, a fingerprint of the times we will live in. Critical times, hard to deal with, are God's exact words. Warnings to Christians alive in the time of the end, that this is the type of attitudes that they would see of people who don't love God, people who are lovers of pleasures. All of these things were all foretold, and I've spoken to taxi drivers on the streets of Worksop about such things, and even as hard bitten and as tough as these people are, even they have to admit that the scripture's spot on, truthfully. Not that that changes anything, and that's the point of the illustration of the broad and the narrow path. That is the absolute sort of point of that particular illustration, is, and of all that I'm trying to talk of is, even if we have got the witness that God gave through Jesus Christ. We have got lots of witnesses of secular historians that were alive in Jesus' day that prove that Jesus did the miracles, and they were his enemies. Enemies don't want to tell people good things about their enemies. These people Josephus didn't want to say good things about Jesus, but it was irrefutable in his day of the things that he was talking about, because everyone alive knew full well that Jesus was alive and that he did do miracles, that he did raise a few people from the dead, almost as a show that this is the way things would be under God's kingdom. This is exactly what was shown. I think I've actually sent him off a little too early. Grab him at the end. So I'm not concentrating on this very much. I'm trying to concentrate on my conversation, my muse, as I keep calling it, to try to gain some inspiration onto what do I do next. The reason I've chosen Farming Simulator as my muse is because it is funny, but obviously I am doing some Let's Plays, and I don't talk like this in the Let's Plays. I am using my Let's Plays as an expression of, but I have noticed that I do express myself, that I even sometimes have got a sense of humour within these Let's Plays, and it's that I'm trying to talk to the me that's somehow more alive within this game, this form of expressing myself, so that I can express myself and understand what I need to do. Because just as that AI literally knew that he was dying and wanted to reach out to anybody, even his enemy, because life was sweet, true life, and what he understood of life and mortality at that point was very, very important, and he wanted to. That's truly what motivates a Christian. It's what motivates people, selfless people, is they want to share what they've got, what they can see, what God has allowed them to see, what the faith of Jesus Christ has allowed them to see. The reality of God, the fact that people can in the future live forever, that we weren't meant to die as we do now. All of these things that are a reality in the present system of things, this system that is so fast coming to an end. But how do you tell people that? How do you not look like a nutter? Which most people think already that Christians are mad, truly, because you see things in a completely different way than they do, and they consider that some form of madness. And even the Bible itself talks about a schism that's the madness of the Christ and the riches of the world. They don't meet. The wisdom of the world is dark and is without God. The wisdom of Christ is an expression of faith, expression of light and love, and is everything about God. How do you explain that to people? How do you sort of show them that? And the truth is, the answer is, you can't, because without faith, people can't believe in God. They look at the world and they think materialism. They don't think, oh yeah, God created this. They think the absolute opposite. Every single thought of an atheist is, there is no God. The Bible itself, God explains that attitude and tells you that that's the way that atheists, people who are alienated from God, that's the way they think. God's already made that clear. He knows what makes everybody tick, whether you believe in him or you don't. He's already written that in the Bible already, the attitude that if you know an atheist, that expression, the way that they are, that is exactly what God has said that they would be like, and that is exactly the way that they act. So amazing. God knows them, you, if you're an atheist, but you don't know God. You can't, because you don't believe in faith. You don't believe that God did create things, you're bedarkened. You see through dark eyes. You don't see through light. You don't believe that God did all these things. So how do you warn mankind? Also, not just that, but we know as Christians it's already written the bad way that we get treated by you during this coming Great Tribulation. We know the nastiness in bad people. We've lived in this system all of our lives. We know full well what to expect.
Did you shout me? Yeah, dinner's ready. Thanks, darling.
What I'm trying to say is that humankind presently thinks that they are so doing so well, so beyond God and the existence of God and the need of God, that they will, in this actual time, do the one thing that they don't, that really will draw God's ire, which is, you can believe that God doesn't exist. That truly is why does it always do that? You will stretch out your hand, and it is already foretold exactly how this will go out. Not how it will go down, but that it will go down, and what you will do. That you will stretch out your hand and make the ultimate mistake in our time, because you believe there is no God, and you believe that the people who do believe in God are idiots for the fact that they do believe in God. You will stretch out your hand, as Russia is already doing, and you will attack God's people. If there was no God, that move is not necessarily a bad thing. But if there is a God, there will come a time when the atrocities that Russia is already doing and that other people will accomplish against God's people and against good people in general, but especially God's people. You see, although the Jehovah's Witnesses have failed God, it's already written. The scriptures, the prophecies that foretold even the exact ways that the Jehovah's Witnesses would fail God, that they would mean well, that they would try to do what's right. Unfortunately, they would ultimately fail. There are lots of prophecies, lots of prods. Even Jesus, the greatest prophet of all, left things that foretold that the Jehovah's Witnesses, God's people in the time of the end, would fail God, and that is exactly what has and will happen, and there will be a reckoning. It is, and it will be done through the people of the world. It's already beginning. The Russian authorities are already treating God's people badly. This will not continue. God will stand up for his people, because you are thinking he doesn't exist in your arrogance, that you think or you know that God doesn't exist, because so many people believe what you believe. But just because you don't call a tree, or you say a tree doesn't exist, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. By you saying such, it will not make the tree cease to exist. And in exactly the same way, God exists. In fact, you exist because of God's will. So, if God didn't exist, neither would you, because in a very strange way, you are a figment of God's imagination, made real, because He has the power to do that. But nevertheless, I'm telling you before it happens, exactly what you will do. You will commit that one thing, that step too far, that is that one step too far. And again, this is already foretold. So I find it quite amazing that in this, when I am musing like this, I am able to express myself. But outside of this, I wonder, how can I express myself? Right, I am tired, so I'm going to leave it for there for now.